the Reverend Julie Tkachuk. Funny, I remembered those words as soon as you said that.
That sounds familiar.
I wrote that. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So speaking of waking up, a man and his wife go to bed at 10 o'clock, and then they're woken up at midnight by this loud banging on the front door. So they wake up really suddenly, and the husband stumbles down the stairs and goes and opens the door. And it's pouring rain outside, and there's this man standing there, and he's obviously slightly inebriated. And the husband says, "What do you want?" Because, look at the time. And the man says, "Would you give me a push?" And the husband says, "You know what? I'm in my pajamas, like it's pouring rain, it's midnight, it's pitch black, there's no way, sorry I can't help you." So he closes the door and goes back upstairs. His wife asks, "Who was it?" So husband tells the wife the story. And she says, "Honey, you've got a short memory. Remember a couple of months ago, we were in our car, we got stuck, and two nice young men came and pushed us and helped us get out of our predicament?" Husband says, "Fine, okay, fine." So he goes downstairs, puts on his raincoat, puts on his rain boots. He goes to the door, opens the door, and he can't see anything. He says, "Are you still out there?" And he hears, "Yes." "Do you still want to push?" He hears, "Yes." And the husband says, "I can't see you. Where are you?" He says, "Over here, on the swing."
Oh my God.
So how different would our own wake-up calls be if we looked at them from a shift in perception? Instead of thinking that this bad thing is happening, that I'm a victim, that this is out of the blue, that this is an accident, how about we see them in a new way? Before I started not just studying science of mind, but applying the principles of science of mind, applying the principles, I thought nothing that happened to me had anything to do with me. It was their fault. It was my dysfunctional family. It was my rotten childhood. It was my boss. It was the economy. It was the government. It was anybody but me. And then, oh then, I had yet another of my wake-up calls from the universe. And it finally got my attention. I ended my marriage. And then I sat. And I started reading self-help books. And I sat some more. And I sat some more. My children were really small. I'd put them to bed, and I would read and meditate and probably do some form of prayer. Maybe at that time it was like, "God, please help me." But I came to the realization that the common denominator in every single issue, every single problem, every single effect in my life was, who? It was me. And then I found the center, and again started taking science of mind, taking classes, and I realized that there are no accidents, not one. There are no random events. Not one. Every single thing, every single person that has appeared in my life, every single experience that I have ever had has been because of what is in my consciousness and my consciousness alone. It's all about me. It was a tough pill to swallow at first. I remember there was a practitioner at the center that used to call me on my stuff. And I used to use a swear word before and after, and in between I called him the thought police. I was so irritated that he dared, he's a practitioner, right? But dared to call me on, my own issues and say, like, listen to your words, listen, like, what's going on in your head? Ernest Holmes, I was reading Ernest Holmes' book, Love and Law, which is one of my favorite books of his. It's an early book. He writes, "If you could see a person's inner consciousness and outer conditions, they would merge into each other with no differentiation." Like if we could take a picture of what's going on in our minds, you see it. So I know absolutely that I am a powerful creator. I know that if I can create a negative this, I can create a positive that. It takes just as much energy. It takes so much energy to be broke and depressed and poor. It takes a lot of work to do that. It takes a lot of mental, it's a drain on our emotions. So what are we focusing on? Are we focusing on the effects in our lives or cause? Last time I was here, Reverend Catherine read a quote from Alan Cohen, I think, from one of his books. He's an author. I find him quite funny. He's got a good sense of humor. He calls what's going on in-your-face productions. That's the name of the movie that's going on, and we're watching it 24/7, right? In-your-face productions. Raymond Charles Barker. He's one of my favorite New Thought authors. He says, every time you forget the central idea in what you are doing and work only with the outer details, pressures, and problems, you exhaust yourself. And the central idea that he speaks of is aligning ourselves with that supreme consciousness. And Johnny referenced that in his meditation. Remembering that those outer details are the direct result of the inner details. Each and every time. And we can change those. Presto changeo. Sometimes instantly, just by shifting our consciousness. That's all it takes. Because what do you take with you when you walk out of the door of your house? What do you take with you when you go to work? What do you take with you when you are with the people in your lives? Yeah, we, drag this physical body of ours along, but we take our consciousness. No matter where we are, no matter what we do, no matter what words are coming out of our mouth, that's our consciousness in action. I am consciousness in action. I am consciousness in physical form. Since I've been on the spiritual path, I've noticed that the farther I go along, the less wiggle room I have. I cannot fool the universe, not for long. I get wake-up calls still. I see them as wake-up calls, though, as soon as they happen. One of my most recent wake-up calls was probably about 3 years ago. I was in a rush to do something. I had a full day planned. I think I had my coat on, I hadn't put my boots on yet, and I was rushing out the door. And I got a call from somebody that wanted me to do something, wanted me to run something next door. Well, my unconscious mind said, squeeze it in, you can do it now. I'm efficient, I like to be efficient, let's do it. So I put on some slippery shoes. It's winter, the sidewalk is slippery, so you know where I'm going with this. Boop. I broke my thumb. Now thank goodness, it was only my thumb. And probably the old me would have wanted to flash a different finger to the universe, but I knew that the finger that needed to be pointed was right here. I knew right away that I could have said, I'll put it in my mailbox. I will drop it off later, but no. So again, great reminder. My lesson from that was, do what works for you in a time that works for you. Yes, you do things for others, but it's got to work for me too. It's got to be on my timeline. John Randolph Price wrote a very small, little, powerful book called The Abundance Book. And he wrote in there, the busier we are, the more disconnected we are from Source. And that is that busyness of rushing around in circles. I think we can have rich, full lives. I think we all would like to have rich, full lives. And rich, full, conscious lives, as much as possible. Buddha was asked, are you a god? He said, no, I'm not a god. And he was asked, are you an angel? He said, no, I'm not an angel either. And finally he said, then what are you? And he said, I am awake. I am awake. Now I've had many wake-up calls in my life, and they're all designed to get me to wake up. I'm sure we all have. And hopefully we get the lesson from them. One of my favorite movies of all time is called Evan Almighty. I don't know if any of you have ever seen that.
Yeah.
It's a 2007 movie, probably takes place in 2007. And Evan has just gotten a promotion. He's in Congress now, and he's moved to a brand new house. And God appears to him and wants him to build an ark in 2007 because there's going to be a flood. Evan responds, "This building an ark thing isn't a part of my plans here. I need to settle into my house. I need to make a good impression at work." To which God starts to laugh hysterically. Your plans? That's just more hysterical laughter. The way the movie unfolds, I think, is so hilarious. It's a lighthearted, funny movie, but the basic premise to me is faith. We have faith in that inner knowing, in that inner calling, in the places that we're called to be, the work that we're called to do, our purpose here. You know, we all have a purpose. We all have a reason beyond the physical, tangible, going to work, brushing my teeth in the morning, yada, yada. Speaking of plans, and speaking of my book, just after I published my book, I used to sell it after my talks. I used to do a lot of public speaking, so it was my after presentation sales. But I started getting a whole lot of traction. I got invitations to travel and sell my book signings, more talks to sell my books after, some international, some in the States. And then I got a wake-up call from my darling son, who was 13 years old at the time. I was a single parent, sole custody, and my son started to do some things and make some decisions that were very slippery slope on the downward spiral. So here was my dream of, publishing my book and, being a successful, huge author. I also had a dream of having a successful, functional, happy, healthy family and children. And my family won. I made the decision to stay home for the most part. I mean, I think I sold thousands of books anyway. But I look back now, I could have been resentful, I could have been angry, I could have been frustrated, I could have been all those things. But my decision to honor my being a mom was more important to me than any of the outer, quotes unquote success that anybody could have offered me. At the time, my son and I were, before my miracle, which I call a shift in perception, we were at loggerheads. I was arguing with him to, do this, don't do that, yada, yada, yada. And we were not happy. We were not a happy family. I was out for a walk one day with the dog that we had at the time. It's my dear old Einstein, so maybe he had the answer for me. But I was asking for a miracle. I was literally looking up, give me a miracle. I need a miracle. I need that shift in perception. And it came. It came in a flash. And what came to me was, he is on his own journey. And he's going to experience the consequences of his own actions. And you gotta let him do that. So I stopped this. And as soon as I removed myself, he was faced with that in-your-face productions. He had to face his own reality. And he changed, I swear, this is why I call it a miracle. Within about 2 days, my son was back. He stopped doing the stuff he was doing. And I just, and even before that, once I had my miracle, I just kept on saying, I know you know what's right from wrong. I believe in you. I have faith in you. I trust you. I know you're going to do this. And he did. So, miracles. Had I chosen the professional path, who knows? Who knows what might have happened? I don't. But I have a good feeling. I have a good feeling that I would not have the great relationship I have with my son today. I would not watch him being the wonderful person that he is, the successful person that he is. And even through all this, used to drive me nuts. He one of the things he used to do, he would sleep all day, or he would, yes, game all night,
Yeah.
sleep all day, so he missed school. You know, I'd be bugging him to go to school. His teachers, I mean, this kid, just, you know, I keep on telling him, you always land on your feet. His teachers would phone me the next day and say, oh, hello, Derek missed a test today, but he can make it up tomorrow. You know, here's me being so angry with him, and his teachers are, oh, you know. Anyway, so had I gone down that path, I'm sure I would not have been a marriage commissioner for 15 years. I would have been doing something different. I likely wouldn't have gone through the process of being an ordained minister, because I would have been doing something different. And I know for a fact that the things that I have done from the heart. That ego and soul have connected. And I have been exactly where I needed to be. So life does present us with crossroads. You know, there's often that we come to paths, you know, crossroads that Reverend Catherine mentioned in the quote from my book. I have a quote from author Carlos Castaneda. He says, if the answer is no, you will know it. Johnny and I were talking about the two no's. And then you must choose another path. The trouble is, nobody asks the question. And when a person is finally ready to realize that he or she has taken a path without a heart, the path is ready to kill him or her. So intuitively, again, we know which is the right path for us. And maybe we need to question the path we're on. You know, if we're not feeling fulfilled, if something isn't working, to avoid those wake-up calls, we need to question and follow the paths that bring us joy and fulfillment. Because when, and I've seen this so many times, that when someone is on a path that is not their path, and it's affecting them in so many negative ways, they often don't change because they're so used to that path and they're afraid to change. The emotional, the psychological, and the mental, and the physical issues that arise from making that choice and staying in those places that we're not aligned with are detrimental. I remember in one of the workshops I did, there was a woman that was struggling with just chronic disease. It was some incurable, I won't say what it is, but really having a hard time. And I only talked to her briefly. You know, it wasn't a practitioner session or anything. I'd given a talk, and she came up to me afterwards, and she was, you know, kind of, I don't think she was really asking for advice. I think she just needed somebody to hear her. So I listened. She was working in a job that she absolutely hated. She hated her job, so she hated her life. So much was just not working. And I asked her why she stayed. And she said that it was because of the quotes unquote golden handcuffs. She had 7 years left to work. She had a full pension after that 7 years. That's why she stayed. And I didn't say this to her, but my thought was, that is 7 years of your life. And girl, you know, wake up. I didn't say anything. I just listened, and, you know, I mean, there were other people standing in line waiting to talk to me, so I couldn't really follow up. But I thought about it afterwards, and I thought she had two other positive choices. She could have addressed what it was about her work that she really didn't like, why she was unhappy, why she was unfulfilled. And I found two quotes that reminded me of the two positive choices that she could have made. One was, stay at the job and follow the advice of somebody named Robert M. Persig, who wrote, the only Zen you find on mountaintops is the Zen that you bring there.
Yeah.
And the other one was, leave and follow the words of the Zen cowboy, who said, I love this, now that the barn has burned down, I can see the moon. So no choice that she made was wrong. You know, even where she was not wrong. It was just her opportunity to move beyond. Gabor Mate, there's a book of his actually on the table. He is I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right either, but he's a psychologist and author. And I think he works out of Vancouver. He works with a lot of addictions patients, clients. He has a lot to say about wake-up calls in the form of disease. He's got a book called When the Body Says No, and it's a powerful book that describes the behaviors, the beliefs, the attitudes, the habits of people that are afflicted with a whole variety of incurable diseases. And I know that, I know people who have had those, and I can see the correlation so clearly. Another of my favorite books, though, is Healing the Incurable by Frederick Bales, who was a contemporary of Ernest Holmes. And it is a cure for those wake-up calls if I ever read one, because he recognizes the all-knowing, the all-powerful, the everywhere-present divine beingness that is in each of us. And that is the perfection that you were talking about in your songs, in your lead-up. We have that divine perfection within us. And once we focus on that and recognize that and embody that, then our lives change. They change. So Frederick Bales writes, failure is not in the act, but in the thought. A man's inner self goes broke long before his business does. One's moral fiber weakens within him long before the world sees it in his actions. Illness starts long before a physician can diagnose it from the physical signs and symptoms. He continues, he who comes to be at peace with himself is soon at peace with others. As we let the bitterness drop away, the envy and jealousy be replaced by friendliness, we enter a new world in which it will soon become clearly evident that our emotions can cure us where before they sought to kill us.
Yeah.
You know, just as Carlos Castaneda, you know, our emotions can cure us or kill us. And Raymond Charles Barker, again, reminds us that where your mental attention goes, your emotions follow. So, you know, it all starts in mind, it all starts in thought. So whatever your wake-up calls have looked like, or do look like right now, ask yourself if you can shift your perception about them. Can I look at this from a lighter, easier, more open perspective? Can I allow Spirit to flow through me? You know, again, when we lighten up, like at the beginning, the story that I told at the beginning, when we can lighten up and see our problems as opportunities for growth, for self-awareness. I remember, like, so often people would say, you mean this was my fault? Like, you know, this isn't my fault, I didn't do this. We attract things to ourselves so often unconsciously. We're not doing anything on purpose. But when we're in that negative state of mind, we just draw more negative things to us. And when we're joyful and at peace, that's what we draw to ourselves as well. Tom Costa was a religious science minister years ago. I think he was in the Palm Springs Center. He had a story that he told. I think I heard him say this at one of the first Asilomars, the annual conference that I went to. He said that he was on a plane, and the plane was experiencing a lot of turbulence. And he said there was a young boy in the seat across the aisle from him, and every time the plane would dip into one of these air pockets, the little boy would go, whee! And Tom Costa's response was, I had to go wee-wee. And I thought, yeah, that's it. You know, we gotta just lighten up. We gotta just lighten up. So I want to end with a quote from Ernest Holmes. Again, this is his book, Love and Law. We are so bound by suggestion, so hypnotized by false belief, so wound up and entangled by the chaotic thinking of the world, which is based upon the principle of a dual mind. We are so confused that we are not ourselves. And in capital letters, he writes, now wake up, exclamation mark. Your word is all powerful. Your consciousness is one with omnipotence, that means all powerful. Your thought is infinite, your destiny is eternal, and your home is everlasting heaven. And heaven is here. There is no other place. Heaven is now. There is no other time. And that kingdom is within. So let's lighten up. When we lighten up, we don't need those wake-up calls. When we are awake, they're fewer and farther between. So let's all end by doing what that little boy did. Let's go.
Whee! So there.